Congressman Meuser, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Sean, it's great to be with you.
Yeah, you're a businessman, built a really successful company. I got to imagine that when you look at the mess that we're in right now, you're thinking to yourself, this would never fly in the business world.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a few sayings in the business world that I agree with and I wish was utilized more in government. And President Trump, fortunately, brings it as often, as effective as he can. And boy, you sure did when you were there. And that's, you know what, check your ego out the door. Results aren't the best thing. They're the only thing. And you know what else? Don't confuse activity with accomplishment. Unfortunately, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are playing ideological games, and that's the same thing as an ego. They're playing ideological games. They're trying to, this thing is purely political. They're trying to, cater to their base. And meanwhile, they're strongly hurting most of America's taxpayers and workers.
All right. So just to make sure that everybody is level set as to what we're dealing with, right? The government stops funding on September 30th because we haven't passed any appropriations bills. The House, led by you guys, asked for a 7-week extension at current levels. No more spending, anything, no new policy, nothing. The Democrats said we want to address healthcare issues right now. In other words, inject policy into this discussion. Yeah. I want to play for you in the audience, though, what Hakeem Jeffries is, I want to show you guys how they've handled this in the past. Take a look at the clip when he was confronted about this on Meet the Press.
But let me ask you, because you say this is a Republican shutdown, but it's Democratic senators who are withholding their votes on what is called a clean resolution. That means no strings attached, which is something, quite frankly, Leader, that you and other Democrats have advocated for in the past. Take a look.
You do not use the threat of shutting down government to try to advance your policy agenda.
First thing that the House has to do is pass a clean 6-week CR.
A continuing resolution that is at the fiscal year 2023 levels is the only way forward.
Okay, so Congressman, you saw it there. All of their leaders, obviously Harry Reid is no longer with us, but that's not the point here. They all seemingly in the past were very clear that that's the only way forward, to do exactly what you guys are doing. So how do we further expose the level of hypocrisy that exists right now?
Well, their attempt is smoke and mirrors, and we are messaging as hard as we can. We're doing media hits. We're doing local. We're sending out social media to my staff this morning, going through the facts and the truth specifically. It was great that Meet the Press actually called him out. The other day, Chris Cuomo, of all people, said what the Democrats are telling you is simply not true. And he offered respect for Hakeem, but in this case, he just finds him to be a complete hypocrite. Like anybody who truly looks at this with a reasonably open mind. Look, just as you said, we have a clean CR. They voted for it under Biden administration 13 times. We allowed it to happen. Not everybody in the Republican Party, but many of us. We didn't want to shut down the government. We're pretty much in the same situation here. Tom Cole, Tom Cole, most probably beloved guy, respected on both sides of the aisle, appropriations chairman, said, okay, let's have a clean CR. We're not done with our appropriations. We need until November. We need 7 weeks. Let's have a clean CR. And they said, okay, just make it short. No problem. Then they came up with their ridiculous demands, stating that we could never, ever, ever, ever cut anything from discretionary spending again. We had to reauthorize PBS and NPR. And oh, by the way, illegals need to be able to receive Medicaid. And they included it. Not only did they just say it, it wasn't a farce. They included the language, illegal aliens receive health care, in their counter proposal. And by the way, this whole thing would cost $1.4 trillion. So, and then they realized that was ridiculous. That was going nowhere. Even the general public wasn't picking it up. So then they added this Affordable Care Act initiative, which we agree with. It needs to be dealt with. We have until December 31st. Let's do this. Now let's and then we deal with that. And yes, we will pinky swear. We will promise. We will sit down. We will begin today discussing ACA improvements, because we're just not going to give them a blank check as soon as the government opens up.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this conversation, but if you're looking for a way to get to sleep tonight and stay asleep, I've got the answer for you. For over a year, I've been taking Beam's Dream Powder. It has made a world of difference. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep, and I wake up ready to go. If you want to join me by taking one scoop every night before you get to bed, go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code word Spicer at checkout for up to 40% off. Trust me, everything stems from a great night's sleep. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. All right, back to the conversation. And don't fall asleep yet. Well, Congressman, I don't mean to call you out for this, but Democrat Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire went on Fox News and made it very clear that no one is saying what you're saying. Take a listen to her.
I haven't heard anybody in my party saying that illegal immigrants should get access to the health insurance marketplace.
I'm so glad you said that. Actually, I have some tape of your Democratic Party members saying this on the debate stage. So they've all said it. Let's play the clip.
A lot of you have been talking tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Senator, that's literally every member of your party, from moderate to more progressive, that have said that in the past.
So not only that, but your colleague Maxine Waters was asked by a reporter the other day, and she said we shouldn't be, dividing people by citizens and non-citizens. I mean, in other words, it's all code word. But the bottom line is, because they might say, well, it's not an illegal, it's an undocumented person. But the bottom line is they want to give health care to people who aren't citizens.
Absolutely. And they're consistent in it, and it is happening. And by the way, part of our savings is removing 1.3, and this is just an estimate. It's probably a lot more, 1.3 illegals. We're asking the states to properly audit and vet their Medicaid rolls. That's all that's being asked. And our estimate, the savings that we're predicting, is our estimates. And it's 1.3 million illegals that are currently receiving Medicaid benefits. And there's a bunch that are simply ineligible, and then the able-bodied that should be have some sort of requirements for work. Common sense things that are included in. And they're telling us that we're trying to gut the Medicaid system. You know who's gutted it? The Obamacare provisions escalated hundreds of billions higher than they thought it would. And they issued during the rescue plan, and this is what they want to keep permanent, temporary provisions for people over $500,000, $600,000 receiving subsidies for the ACA. And then it did insult to injury. The payments are going to insurance companies. So over 1/3 of the $250 billion extra that came in the rescue plan is going to insurance companies that are not providing any healthcare services. Thank you, Democrat Party, Democrat leadership. You people can't manage yourself, out of a paper bag, as the saying goes.
So I don't see, the only way I see forward is that if there's a deal on timing, right, which is the Democrats say, fine, we'll give you 4 weeks, but you have to agree to a vote on ACA. Do you see any other scenario in which to break this logjam? Like any other, I don't see a deal where Republicans agree to this ACA stuff without sort of, you reopen the government, maybe it's not 7 weeks, maybe it's 5, whatever, and then we agree to have that conversation. Is that a fair analysis?
It is. It's fair. But you know what, Sean, they don't think like we think. They're looking at they're looking at the polls, and the polls are greatly in our favor right now. That's why they are blitzing every media outlet they can possibly blitz. That's why Hakeem just recently offered a challenge on the House floor to Mike Johnson so he could stand up there and pontificate on things that simply are not true. And he can show everybody how well he emulates former President Barack Obama and just state things that he thinks are catchy. But how about we do this instead, Hakeem? How about we open the government, and then we sit down and we can have the cameras there, and we actually go to work, not give speeches, not talk, not throw phrases out there and all kinds of alliterations that make you look so brilliant. Okay, let's actually do something rather than say something. Let's try that.
So let's just say hypothetically that this scenario plays out, we open the government back down. You say that we have to have changes. That's a Republican commitment, right? We're not just going to extend the ACA, the affordable healthcare subsidies, because of everything that happened during COVID, right? We need to reform this. Fair?
Yeah. And things that the American public, if they knew, as I said, the 1/3 going for just insurance companies for services they're not rendering, and those over 500K, that was an income receiving ACA subsidies, which have driven the cost super high. And again, they were done during COVID. Okay, it was like everything was allowed during COVID, but even the Democrats included it as a permanent, or excuse me, as a temporary resolution. Now they want to make it. Permanent.
Yeah. This Friday, the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced. This week, the president seemingly notched his 8th big win, ending a war. Secretary Marco Rubio was out kind of talking about the magnitude of it. Take a listen to what he said on the Sunday shows.
We're not dealing with a political movement. We are dealing with killers and savages and terrorists. That's who we're dealing with. That said, what gives you hope here is that at least there now is a framework for how all this can come to an end and those hostages can be released. What gives you hope here is the fact that for the first time in this entire endeavor, you have the United Arab Emirates, you have Qatar, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, you have Egypt, you have Jordan, you have Indonesia, you have all these countries, the European countries, all lined up behind a plan and putting a tremendous amount of pressure to make it happen. And President Trump's the one that put that together. He put together this coalition pushing in the same direction with us to try to get this, not just the hostages released, but this thing resolved. So I understand the hope and the dread, because many of these hostage families have been living this for over 2 years, but they have seen other efforts in the past fail. They have seen efforts to release hostages that didn't include their loved ones. So we understand that, we do. And that's why everyone from the highest levels of our administration are so committed to getting this done. That's why even as I speak to you now, talks are ongoing between the mediators to create the conditions and the logistics so we can get those hostages out ASAP.
So, Congressman Meuser, how hopeful are you that this thing actually comes to fruition?
Well, I'm quite hopeful. And boy, oh boy, is Marco doing such a great job. I know when you were in the Trump White House, you dealt with him quite a bit when he was in the Senate. And you also saw firsthand, and you were part of the team about getting things done. President Trump is really the party of what works. We do what works. I don't know if that's conservative. It's certainly not liberal, but we do what works in the short term and particularly in the long term. And the president has stated this. He said he was going to keep working at it, bringing these Middle East parties together. He brought together Saudi Arabia. He's bringing Egypt into this. None of them were part of it before. Of course, Israel has made concessions. Qatar, the folks at Qatar. Look, they do their best to actually be part of the solution and not be part of the problem. And that's what I believe anyway. There's some controversy there, but they want to be part of the solution. But it's all led because of President Trump and now Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. And I'm very hopeful. I think this is Gaza's last chance. I'm not going to say Hamas's last chance because I don't think Hamas deserves a last chance. But if they care at all about those within their communities, within their nation, they within the Gaza Strip, of course. They will release the hostages and they will plead for peace and mercy.
When you're at home, I've never thought foreign policy was a big deal, like in terms of what people is on the top of mind of people. Maybe some people it is. When you're in Pennsylvania, as you are now, do people bring this up? I mean, like, what's the top of mind issue right now for people in Pennsylvania when you go around?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, certainly some people ask and they just said, oh, boy, this has been going on for decades. I mean, what are you going to do? They're kind of just accustomed to Middle East issues. And they're very grateful. Actually, we got natural gas and energy in Pennsylvania. So they're grateful to the president leaning in on domestic energy. So these crises don't cause a recession. Remember the day when Middle Eastern conflicts would basically cause a recession? Thanks to liberal policies. But it's not really. It's really the economy. It is very much the president's plan related to strengthening our economy. There are questions about the tariffs, but they get it. People in my district absolutely get it. There's, some that have more questions than others. But look, world peace is very, very significant, right? They are seeing the death tolls on a weekly basis, both in Israel and in Gaza. Certainly the Jewish community, but not just them, those who are, and that's the vast majority, I think, that are positive about siding with Israel under the circumstances. But it's not a top of mind. But they love the fact that the president is providing worldwide leadership. They know how important that is, and that resounds from Ukraine to Russia to China to Japan.
Okay. Congressman Dan Meuser of Pennsylvania, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate your time today.
Hey, Sean, you're the best. Anytime I'll be on. Boy, oh boy, you have a great show. Enjoy listening to you, and just thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.